Hello and welcome to Inside Sports. I'm Wes Decker. Well, Super Bowl 50 is behind us, and in my humble opinion, it was a dud. I mean, I don't know about you, but it didn't even feel like a Super Bowl to me. I mean, Denver wins a game in which its longest touchdown drive was 4 yards. That's right, 4 yards. And the Broncos didn't really even need it, despite playing opposite the consensus league MVP in Cam Newton. And was he even there? Oh, that's right. He was there wearing Von Miller on his back all night. I know Cam didn't exactly stay very long at the post-game press conference. Maybe since he had no Super Bowl title to celebrate, he just couldn't wait to get out of there so he could get an early start on dabbing in observance of the Chinese New Year that began on Monday. And just to be clear, despite Mountain Dew's best advertising efforts, it's the year of the monkey, not the puppy monkey baby. Although I'd still rather watch that grotesque creature than have to see that idiotic look on Eli Manning's face after the Broncos scored their final touchdown. Now that was scary. On a totally unrelated subject, I'm almost giddy. Justin Bieber hits the silver screen in Zoolander 2 on Friday and takes the Grammy stage on Monday. Big days ahead, fellow believers. But first, I have a show to do. Coming up today, all of the winter sports are accounted for. There's indoor track and field, North Stars hockey, girls and boys basketball with Herald Mail insiders Bob Parsoliti and Kevin Dunleavy respectively. And I promised you wrestling this week, and I deliver with a considerable Boonsboro slant. First-year head coach Sean Smith is here to talk about Warriors in singlets when you come back.
This is our home. It's where we've all decided to put down roots and raise families, not because we had to, because we wanted to. And as a business owner, you pour every ounce of energy into doing what's right for you in this community, and you won't and you don't stop until you get what you want, and neither do we. We're Antietam Cable Productions, and it's time to stand up and be seen and heard. You have a voice, and we'll help you tell your story. Antietam Cable Productions, putting the beat into the heart of your business.
Well, Eric and I worked for a long time together in the corporate restaurant world, and we decided that we wanted to put the fun back into food.
We do our food our way. We take the traditional and spin it.
We change our menu regularly. We have specials that are creative. Great food, great service in a warm and friendly environment where you can be in jeans and a t-shirt next to someone in a business suit and everyone feels comfortable.
Welcome back to the show. We get started this week with wrestling, and joining me is Boonsboro head coach Sean Smith. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Great to have you here. It's your first year at Boonsboro, and I'm not sure that a first year anywhere could go much better than your first year with the Warriors. Talk a little bit about what's transpired this season.
Well, we've managed to put together a 12-2 season, which to my knowledge is the best that Boonsboro's ever had. And I'm just very fortunate to have landed where I did. I come from a small town on the Eastern Shore called St. Michael's, and Boonsboro is actually pretty similar, just replacing the water with the hills. So it's been a great experience. A lot of really nice people and a lot of great kids.
Trading one for the other there, coming from St. Michael's, where you were very successful, and I know you seem to be a very humble guy. You don't take a lot of credit for things. You're just kind of the steward of programs. I think that's the way you sort of look at it. But Boonsboro seemed to have this coming. It seemed like they were headed in the right direction, and perhaps they just needed to kind of get over the top. And now all of a sudden, for the first time ever, going to the 2A, 1A state duels. That will have happened by the time the show airs. But talk a little bit about that, just being able to get there, being among the 4 elite teams in the region.
Well, making it to the regional duels is a pretty big deal just because in wrestling, they put all the 2As and the 1As together, which right away makes it incredibly difficult if you're not one of the bigger schools. And then it also makes it incredibly difficult to compete once you get there because it's only the top 4 that get in. So just getting in is incredibly difficult. Once you're there, as we talked about earlier, it's all good teams. So it's a lot of preparation, a lot of hard work. But we were very fortunate to get there. I also feel like you said, Boonsboro's probably been building up for a while. I haven't been there to see that. But when I got here, it wasn't like when I got to St. Michael's where we basically just built a wrestling program. Like there was already a program firmly established. So it may come off as being humble, but at the same time, there was a lot there already with good coaches, good kids, and athleticism that I think shines through. And the fortunate thing we've had this year is we've had a starting lineup that is consistent. We've had a group of kids that are consistent, and we've only had one kid quit from day one. So evidently we're making an enjoyable experience. So.
7 guys with 20-plus wins this season, 3 with 30 or more right now. Talk a little bit about the team itself and the composition of the team and why this has worked so well.
Well, I mean, we have a wide variety of wrestling abilities on the team. We have everything from your technicians that actually know a lot of holds that have wrestled in the youth groups and youth ages. And then we also have kids that are more or less, I always call them brawlers, but they're guys that focus a lot less on technique and a lot more on movement and being able to pin another guy. So we have a very odd combination of wrestling, which I kind of like. And I think that comes from having coaches that have varying styles. But also just from kids with different personalities. Some kids like to wrestle for a pin. Other kids like to show what they know and things like that. So, but like I say, I think the most important thing is keeping it fun. And I think a good reflection of how good of a job you're doing as a coach is how many kids you lose from start to finish during a season. Because in the end, that's kind of what we are. Is we're running a program for a school, and in the end, the main idea is participation. And kids being there and enjoying it. And we've managed to keep everybody but one, so we're pretty proud of that.
How do you explain some of the improvement for some of the guys this year? Because they have just come leaps and bounds from last season and even the year before that.
I think a lot of it's mentality. I think a lot of it is just them focusing on what they want to do and not being so... They need to be decisive, and we still have a problem with this. The Manchester Valley match we just lost was mostly a product of kids not being aggressive and not actually deciding what they want to do before they get out there. In wrestling, one of the biggest mistakes you can make is getting out on the mat and then deciding what you're going to do, because if you don't have a plan, you will usually lose. And in fact, Brett Nally, who's one of our coaches, was saying yesterday to the kids, like, guys who get the first takedown win 80% of the time. So if your plan is to stand there until the guy takes you down, the odds are against you winning that match. And that's honestly where a lot of our kids, when they default to panic, that's where they go to. So I think the biggest improvement this year is them getting it into their heads that I need to know what I'm doing and I need to execute that.
Yeah, a statistic like 80% doesn't lie. I think
No.
That's a pretty true figure right there. Of course, now as the number 3 seed, you get the 2 seed, South Carroll, and that's a tough program. 3 guys ranked number 1 in their weight class in the classification. What's your plan of attack for this going into the region duels? I mean, are you sort of painting yourself as an underdog going in? I mean, what's the motivation going in? How do you attack this?
Well, one thing you'll see in the regional duels in wrestling is that the stellar programs that are there year in and year out are usually your 2A schools that are bigger, that have an established wrestling program. Both Middletown and South Carroll are those type of schools. So they're very seasoned. They've done this before. They know what they're doing. They've got kids that have been to states multiple times. So I would say in that respect, we're definitely an underdog. When you approach situations like that, I've always felt that if you go out there and you just try to wrestle them head to head and you're best against their best, you're probably going to lose because they have all those things in their favor. So I guess your best plan of attack is to go out there and try to pull as many upsets as you can, try to move your lineup around to where you think you can get some favorable matchups and then try to pin people. I mean, I think a big part of it is I've never bought into the whole tell yourself you're as good as they are. Yeah. Like, I think you're better off recognizing what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and then doing what you're good at. So if we're good at pinning, then that's what we're going to try to do.
Well, just the second winning record in program history this year for Boonsboro. Coach Smith, best of luck, and thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate being here.
I'll be back right after this. Bob Parsoliti joins me. We'll talk girls basketball when you come back in just a moment.
Antietam Cable's WCL-TV invites you to take a tour of local restaurants from the comfort of your couch with our local dining guide, airing now. Your host Sam Little goes beyond just the dining room and sits down with local owners and chefs to talk about what makes their restaurants local favorites. We explore the best of American cuisine, head south of the border for a little heat, and travel over the Atlantic for some of Italy's best. Washington County is a hotspot for great food, and we're showing you what you've been missing with WCL-TV's local dining guide, airing now on Channel 30 and in HD on Channel 489.
Sports fans rejoice! Antietam Cable's sports package delivers all your sports action, including NFL Red Zone and MLB Network. Don't miss a touchdown, three-pointer, or home run from your favorite teams in your region or across the country. From pro to college to life in the great outdoors, Antietam Cable has your sports coverage. Sports Plus. Order now and get 60 days free. Instant activation with a digital box. Call Antietam Cable now, 301-797-5000.
Welcome back to the show. We continue with girls basketball, and joining me now is Herald Mail insider Bob Parsolini. Bob, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, Saturday, I think we found out one thing in particular, that Williamsport unquestionably is the best girls team in the county. Record-wise now 15-3, 7 consecutive wins, and they beat a Boonsboro team that had been on a roll to that point in time, and Williamsport really did it in a way where they just picked Boonsboro apart from the very beginning of that basketball game.
Well, they established that they could score at any time, almost any time they wanted, and really made Boonsboro work to do that. I thought the first 2 times down the floor, I think that Williamsport consciously went to Olivia Coleman to see what if she could put some power in there and take over the middle, and it worked. She only scored once, but it was just the idea that they got it in there that easily. And then after that, I mean, they just controlled the middle, and Boonsboro just couldn't get in there, and that was the difference in the game. Boonsboro couldn't sink anything.
52-31 final in that game. So for Williamsport this year, and I know we've talked about it a number of times on the show, but 35 points or less allowed in a game by Williamsport this season now 13 times, and not coincidentally, 13 wins in those 13 games. Defensively, this is a team that just plays so well as a team, and I think we really saw them have to do that on Saturday because of foul trouble that they ran into. Not only defensively did all of those players know their roles coming off the bench, but even offensively to keep that working margin going.
Well, at one point in the time Olivia Coleman was on the bench with her fouls, and they were coming down to the side of the floor closer to the locker rooms. And that's about where I was sitting. I'm looking, and Williamsport had nobody looked like over 5'9" out there. You know, I says, God, they're wearing blue. They look like Smurfs out there, you know, because they were so small. And I was waiting for Boonsboro to make the big move right there. And their defense was that good that prevented them from, you know, coming back at all, at any point in this.
Yeah, it became the Williamsport Lilliputians against the Giants of Boonsboro, but Boonsboro just couldn't do anything against that defense. And now Williamsport, with a win over Clear Spring, should the Wildcats beat Clear Spring on Friday, Williamsport would sweep the county public school teams for the second year in a row. Williamsport just really on a roll. I mean, there are so many ways that you can slice it and dice it, but it all comes back to the same story. 2 games next week for Williamsport, though, that should be interesting against teams who will be in the other section within their region. Winters Mill right now, who's number 3 over there, and they also get Liberty on the road a week from this coming Friday. That's the number 1 team over in that section. So I think that will tell them a lot, and will certainly get them prepared for what's coming up.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Murphy said that they will go as far as Kate Wade, Olivia Coleman, and Erin McVicker will take them. It depends on what everybody else does, and that's pretty much the case. I think the thing that with that defense that you're talking about is so great is, yes, it stops the other team from scoring, but they get so much of their offense out of that defense because they get turnovers, they get the 1 rebound and turn it around. You know, it's not all transition, but it's making sure the other team doesn't score, and they only have 1 chance sometimes to do it.
And one thing that they're so disciplined at when it comes to running that break, when their defense gets them going that way, is that they get the ball in the hands of their point guard. It's not just another player bringing the ball down the court. It's their point guard who has the ball in her hands, and she's able to distribute from there. And the players know the angles they need to take in order to get in the right places.
Well, when Erin McVicker is not in there, you can tell a big difference. Toward the end of the game, when they had the game in hand, McVicker was sitting, and they gave the ball to Kate Wade to handle it, and she just doesn't do it the same way that McVicker does. And so, I mean, each person has their own thing they have to do for them to be successful. And there's a little bit of wiggle room, but not a lot.
No, I would agree with that for the most part, for sure. And Boonsboro 11-6 right now, just because they lost that game, all is not lost. But when you look within their section in 1A West, Manchester Valley is sitting there at 18-0 right now. a team that handed Boonsboro a 24-point loss earlier in the season. So the Warriors are going to have to do a lot, and they're going to have to do it without Alexis Baker, who's now out for the season with a shoulder injury. Ellie Connolly suffered an injury in the Williamsport game, one that doesn't look like it'll be long-term, but still it looks like she'll be nicked up a little bit for a little while.
Well, the whole problem at the beginning of the year was Sam Connolly, the coach, was looking for a guard to take control, and now you just lost 2 guards that could be doing that. So, I mean, that's going to have to shuffle the deck a little bit more to find the right formula in order to make it work.
Yeah, Boonsboro still won 8 of its last 9 and 10 of its last 12. That is girls basketball for this week. Thank you very much, Bob. I'm back right after this. Kevin Dunleavy joins me for boys basketball in just a moment.
Mexico City. What were you doing there? I was taking some overdue holiday.
You're crossing over to a place where there is no mercy.
This organization.
Its name is Spectre.
It was me, James, the author of all your pain.
Rated PG-13.
Digital customers, tune to Channel 1 to get started. Welcome back to Inside Sports. We'll continue with boys basketball now. And for that, I turn to Herald Mail insider Kevin Dunleavy. Welcome back to the show, Kevin.
Thank you, Wes.
Let's start with the Broad Fording boys. I had Coach Klutz on last week talking about his team, and at that point in time, the winning streak continued to grow, and it's swelled even more up to 11 straight games. This has been quite a turnaround for those guys.
Yeah, it's from where they were at the beginning of the year. I think they started 5-11, and you know that the schedule's going to get easier once they get into league play because it's a lot of small teams, small school teams. But they're definitely playing so much better now than earlier in the year. They avenged the 2 losses that they had in the league back in December. So, you know, everything's looking up for them going into the tournament, regardless of where they're seated. I think they'll be in really good shape.
Yeah, their average margin of victory during this winning streak, 27.4 points per game. And that is some sheer domination. So they certainly have found what they were looking for early in the year. Last 2 games were fairly tough ones, but you expect that when you play games against teams who know you within the conference. So, again, anything can happen in that MDCC tournament, which starts next Tuesday. But if any team has momentum, it is certainly Broad Fording going into that, no question. Speaking of momentum on the public school scene, Williamsport last week, a clean sweep of the week, going 3-0. North Hagerstown, South Hagerstown, and then Boonsboro. That's a banner week.
Yeah, three quality wins, and I saw the South game. They avenged a loss there from earlier in the year, which they really wanted to do. And you know, Michael Riley playing the point is really, you know, with his hands on the ball more. That's good for Williamsport. He's still not getting enough shots. Ryan Grable wants him to take more, but he's not a selfish player. But you know, they want him involved in the offense, and that's helping him out a lot for him to be at the point.
And Marquil Nelson has really come on as of late, too. You know, you kind of talk about 3 guys there in particular, certainly Riley at the top, but also Nelson and throw in Jake Arnone, too. All 3 of those guys have been playing very well, so no surprise then that the Wildcats would be playing well collectively as a unit. They've won 4 in a row now, 5 of the last 7, and again, a huge week last week. And now this week, a couple of big games coming up on the road at James Wood on Wednesday, and then at Clear Spring. Talk about trying to avenge a loss. They'll try to knock off the Blazers, who beat them earlier this year in their house.
Yeah, the Blazers held them to 25% shooting, uncharacteristic for Williamsport because they shoot pretty well. And that's another one they'd really like to check off their list and sort of establish themselves as the best team in the county right now.
Yeah, Clear Spring really held them down first time around, as you said, due in large part to that shooting, 47-43. Clear Spring won the first one back in the middle of January. Big game coming up, finally the rescheduled IPSL championship game. St. James and St. Maria Goretti at Goretti coming up Saturday night, a game that we'll have live on Antietam Cable Television. And right now, both of these teams are playing very good basketball. Goretti had struggled after winning that game. They had lost 3 in a row, but now all of a sudden the Gales have won 3 straight. St. James has also won 3 in a row. Give us a little insight on this matchup.
It's going to be a tough week for St. James. They play the 2 teams that they lost to in the MAC tonight, or Tuesday and Thursday, so Sidwell and Murray. And then Saturday, so it's going to be 3 tough games in 5 days. So that's going to be tough for them, but they're playing well. They've got Craig Lassen's back, and that's big for him. He wasn't in the first game. Goretti, they'll have Elijah Clarence back, so that'll be big for them. So maybe they'll cancel out each other, and we'll have a similar result.
Yeah, it could be an even tougher week for Goretti. They actually play 4 games in the week. So I mean, that's doing a lot of duty in the span of 7 days, no question of that. And Goretti has won the last 2 in the series against St. James, including the IPSL championship game last year. But yeah, a couple of faces that should make a difference for each team in this game, guys who weren't there the first time around. And I think St. James will be up for this game. When I talked to Coach Preet after the first time that those two got together, yeah, he sort of said, yeah, we did not give our best effort in that game. So I think they'll be clearly focused this time around on Saturday for sure. And I think, the first time when you looked at it on paper, you see the big guys for St. James and then the quick guys for Goretti. I just saw Goretti against Archbishop Spalding a little bit on Monday night. Boy, they look quicker than ever. I think these two teams are really headed in the right direction right now. That is going to be a highly competitive game.
Yeah, Goretti's got a lot of depth, and that's a big factor against St. James, which doesn't have a whole lot of depth. If they can wear them down, and that'll be a big advantage for them, especially after a tough week for both teams.
And they're going to be shoehorning everybody into the Gale Center that they possibly can. That is going to be quite an atmosphere coming up on Saturday night for the IPSL Championship. St. James comes in 14-5, or at least they're 14-5 right now as we tape here on Tuesday, and Goretti at 14-10. Well, that's a look at what we've got going on in basketball, some of the hottest teams to talk about. And again, they've been interchangeable here as the season has gone along, but a few teams really starting to establish themselves and create niches for themselves. Kevin, thanks as always.
Thank you, Wes.
I'll be back right after this. I've got indoor track and field and some North Stars playoff hockey for you in just a moment.
Tony's Pizza in Williamsport has had the same simple philosophy since 1985. Start with simple products. Sauce from the best Italian tomatoes. The best cheese and dough made fresh every day. Then mix those with a great atmosphere, and you'll have the best dining experience you can find. Tony's is known for their pasta dishes, subs, pizzas, and specialty items like their Nutella Dots and the famous Crazy Tony. Simply put, they want to give the best food they can give to their customers. So stop in today to Tony's Pizza in Williamsport.
Antietam Cable's WCL-TV invites you to take a tour of local restaurants from the comfort of your couch with our local dining guide, airing now. Your host Sam Little goes beyond just the dining room and sits down with local owners and chefs to talk about what makes their restaurants local favorites. We explore the best of American cuisine, head south of the border for a little heat, and travel over the Atlantic for some of Italy's best. Washington County is a hotspot for great food, and we're showing you what you've been missing with WCL-TV's local dining guide, airing now on Channel 30 and in HD on Channel 489.
Welcome back to Inside Sports. We continue with indoor track and field now. And I have to tell you up front that the footage that you're about to see is not of the athletes in the actual events that I'll be talking about. The reason for that, I'm guessing that you'd rather see them in action than me, and I just couldn't be every place last week. So we begin with the 3A West Region Championships last Thursday at the PG Sportsplex. Now, as far as the girls are concerned, a bit of an interesting rivalry has developed between a South Hagerstown senior and a North Hagerstown sophomore. Chelsea Wright, the senior at South Hagerstown, and sophomore Jordan Morris at North Hagerstown. They both had a phenomenal year in terms of the high jump. Now, Wright would win the region championship, clearing 5-1 last Thursday, while Morris finished 2 inches back, but they'll both be going on to states where they'll go head-to-head one more time. Morris had outjumped Wright back in mid-December to win the Warrior Invite with a PR of 5 feet, but since then, Wright has placed ahead of her the last 4 times now that they have gone head-to-head. Incidentally, Wright's PR is 5'2", and she finished 10th last year at States. Morris was 8th, but she was competing then in 2A for Williamsport. Incidentally, Morris also qualified in the 55 hurdles for the 2nd year in a row. In her first year at North, she'll be the Hub's lone representative at states. Wright, on the other hand, will have company, including some boys with big aspirations. South Hagerstown senior Darren Harmon captured the 1600 and the 3200 region titles. Harmon topped his fastest time this season in the 1600 by 4.6 seconds, clocking a county best for the year of 4 minutes 27.02 seconds, which was also a new PR for him. He then ran his record to 5-0 in the 3200 this season by stopping the clock with a PR of 9 minutes 39.39 seconds, a margin of victory of 18 plus seconds and nearly 4.5 ticks better than his previous top time this year. After finishing 6th at states a season ago, Harmon's determined to come home first on Tuesday. Two of his Rebel teammates will be striving for gold too after just missing out on it at regions. County 55 hurdles champ Derek Ullman came up 5/100ths of a second short last Thursday, but PR'd in the prelims with a time that would have won the finals. And Nate Harrison Moore, the runner-up at counties in the high jump, improved by 4 inches at the region championships. The South sophomore cleared 6'2", the same height as the winner, but had to settle for second because of more misses. Altogether, South sends a half dozen athletes to the big stage. Meantime, as a result of her performance at the 2A West Region Championships last Saturday at HCC, one of a quartet of pole vaulters who will headline a Williamsport contingent of 5 total qualifiers will be going back to states for the 3rd straight year. It'll be the final shot for senior Blarina Rookie, who tied for second at regions with teammate Abby Coons, vaulting 7 feet 6 inches, exactly 1 foot off her indoor PR, so she certainly has every right to go higher. For the Williamsport boys, 2-time county champ Justin Walters will be going to states for the first time and taking a ton of confidence with him, coming off a new PR of 12 feet 4 inches. The junior placed 3rd last Saturday. Best of luck to all of our county athletes in Landover at the Indoor Track and Field State Championships this coming Monday and Tuesday. In playoff hockey, the Washington County North Stars advanced to the semifinals of the Monocacy Cup last Friday with a 5-2 victory over Carroll County. That despite spotting the 5th-seeded Bears a 1-0 lead less than 6 minutes in when Matt Wheatman, who tallied 4 times against the North Stars in Carroll County's 8-5 regular season victory back in November, skated 3/4 of the ice untouched to find the back of the net at 5:52. But North Stars goalie Jack Perna, who had shut the Bears out 9 days earlier in the team's 2nd regular season encounter, rediscovered that form from there, keeping Carroll County off the scoreboard and enabling his guys to get on it. And it was Dalton Blundell who got the equalizer the hard way, scoring shorthanded just over halfway through the opening period. Then, about 6.5 minutes later, the junior victimized the Bears for the 5th time this season, working a 2-man game with Harris Blackwood while the North Stars were on a 2-man advantage to forge in front with 1:08 remaining in the first. Despite its best efforts to increase it, the Washington County advantage remained at 2-1 through the bulk of the middle period as several juicy scoring chances went unfinished. There was good news, though. Not only were the North Stars creating those chances, Perna, who had finished the night with 30 saves, was continuing to turn away Carroll County's opportunities at the other end. And finally, late in the second, persistence paid off for the 4th seed when Blackwood walked the goal line and flipped in a backhander, increasing the home team's margin to 2, and the sophomore wasn't close to being finished. Working with a 5-on-3 power play for the 2nd time in the game, Blackwood snapped home a wrister 3:44 into the 3rd to make it 4-1 North Stars, and then, less than a minute later, Blundell set him up in front for the hat trick and a comfortable 5-1 cushion. Washington County would go on to win 5-2, earning a semifinal matchup versus 2nd-seeded Oakdale on Tuesday in Frederick. As of this taping, we don't know the result of that game, but we do know it was certainly going to be an uphill battle. Oakdale had beaten the North Stars in their 2 regular season meetings by a combined score of 19-2. The other semi pitted 6th-seeded Urbana, who had advanced via a Frederick County forfeit, against top-seeded Middletown. Results next week. Also ahead next week, state championship show and tell from indoor track and field, the boys IPSL basketball title game recap, a look back at region and hopefully state dual meet wrestling outcomes, and a look ahead at next Saturday's county tournament. That's next time. Between now and then, have a happy Valentine's Day and President's Day. I'd suggest kissing a $1 or $5 bill to commemorate them as one happy collective holiday. Then sanitize your lips. That should keep you busy until next week. See you then on the inside.
Hey, your sisters and your brothers, your haters and your lovers, you gotta get up in the streets.